Okay, let's dive into a fantastic case study today. This one's by Bettina Schwenger from the Journal of Open, Flexible, and Distance Learning. It's all about a really thoughtful design to build up digital information literacy for first-year students. And what's so valuable here isn't just the tech or the tools, but how deeply it's grounded in a specific cultural context, which, as you'll see, offers some powerful lessons for all of us. This quote is where the article gets its title, and it just gets right to the heart of the whole study. The main goal here wasn't just about teaching skills, like how to click a button. It was about boosting student confidence and that feeling of I can do this. It's about empowerment, and one teacher in the study tied this idea directly to a Maori pedagogical approach. So what problem were they trying to solve? Well, it's a big one, and it's probably familiar to a lot of educators. There's this huge gap between the digital info literacy skills students show up with and the skills they actually need to make it in university. In this specific case, students were really struggling to find, evaluate, and then use information for a really important ePortfolio assessment. Now, the context here is absolutely critical. This study took place in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and it was with first-year students in an early childhood education program. This setting isn't just, some random backdrop. The culturally responsive design is completely central to the project's whole philosophy and ultimately its success. A core concept that guided these educators was whananganatanga. Now, the paper explains this as the process of developing and maintaining relationships. And this wasn't just a nice to have. It was seen as absolutely fundamental to real, authentic learning for every single student, whether they were Maori or not. So the whole design was seen through this lens of building relationships. And this wasn't just a casual experiment. The study followed a really rigorous 3-phase educational design research approach. First, they figured out the core problems. Then, they moved into designing and prototyping solutions, getting feedback along the way. And finally, they fine-tuned everything and evaluated the results. It's this systematic process that makes the findings so solid. Okay, so they identified the problem, they had this specific context in mind. So what did they actually do? Well, the research team developed 4 customized online resources. They were all designed specifically to bridge that digital literacy skills gap for that ePortfolio assessment the students had to do. At the heart of these resources was this brilliant 6-step process. It basically takes the big, kind of scary idea of doing research and breaks it down into concrete, manageable steps for first-year students. This visual path, from just figuring out the task all the way to presenting the final work, gave them a clear roadmap to follow. And this is a great example of how these resources were so much more than a simple checklist. They embedded these thoughtful, reflective questions right into the process. So for step 5, analyzing information, it prompts the student, how does this help me understand my topic? These questions were designed to get students to stop and think critically about what they were doing and why. So, using that 6-step process as a base, the team built out 4 distinct resources. As you can see, they had everything from interactive scenarios to practice quizzes. The crucial point here is that this was not a one-size-fits-all solution. It gave students multiple ways to practice, to reflect, and to get feedback on their own terms. So, the big question, right? Did it actually work? Let's take a look at the impact. The findings really boil down to 3 key themes that show what changed, not just for the students, but for the teachers too. Okay. So the first big finding was that, yes, the resources absolutely helped students improve their digital literacy skills. But just as important, check out this evolution in the teacher's own thinking. They went from seeing their online learning management system as just a static file cabinet to viewing it as a dynamic space for real practice and new learning. Their mindset totally shifted from face-to-face is the only way to how can we be deliberately present and supportive online? And this quote is just so powerful. Teacher A makes a direct connection between providing a range of online resources, letting students choose what works for them, and the Maori concept of supporting a student's mana. It's not just about differentiation. It's about honoring the individual and supporting their inner power and their ability to succeed. Now, it wasn't all a simple success story. The third theme brought up a real-world challenge. Even with all these new resources, when it came to building that sense of community, that idea of wanting tangata, the teachers found that student-led social media groups were actually way more effective than the official university system. It's a really key insight into where students naturally go to connect. So, what does this all mean for those of us working outside this specific program in New Zealand? Well, the paper pulls out some fantastic, transferable lessons
that you could apply in pretty much any educational setting. Let's break down the big takeaways.
All right, here are the key lessons for any of us. First, make it practical. Tie skill development directly to an assessment they have to do, and build tools that let them practice and get feedback. Second, make it personal. Offer a range of tools so students can choose their own adventure and be really intentional about building your own online presence. But maybe the biggest lesson of all is this. Don't see culturally responsive design as some niche thing. See it as a source of universal principles, like the powerful idea of supporting a student's mana.
And that really leaves us with this final question to think about in our own work. It's a real shift in perspective. How can we move beyond just delivering content and skills and start designing online learning experiences that actively support our students' mana, that fundamental human feeling that they have the power and ability to truly, truly achieve?